This last week I was part of a very long meeting, a week-long meeting, as our church, our national church, the ELCA, gathered for Churchwide. As you can imagine, physically taxing. We had meetings from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then 3 the night, and that didn't count any of the time socializing much longer than I should have, and getting up and doing it the next day. It wears on you. It's exhausting. It's mentally exhausting too. They used to hand you a 7-inch 3-ring binder with all the documents you needed to read and review for this week together. This year, fortunately, they put it all on an iPad so you could get to it quickly. It also had internet connection so you could tell people what you were up to, which I enjoyed. It's emotionally taxing too. You wouldn't think of that going into the big long meetings, but through these election processes and through listening to people's passion for the things they're excited about, through the worship services and prayers and songs and all kinds of things happening, it wears on you that way too. Endurance through all of that. I must confess to you, I was not very good at pacing myself. And by Wednesday, I felt dead tired. But there's something to this passage of running the race, of being part of a cloud of witnesses, of laying aside the sin and weight that clings so closely, of persevering through that. That doesn't have so much to do with us being able to muster through, but that operating peace at the end. Christ who has gone before us, the pioneer and perfecter, the one who has died for us and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. These words seem very pertinent to me this week. The part about laying away the side and the sin that clings so closely. We live in a world that's so full of conflict and division. You know, you start mentioning the word politics and you sit on the edge of your seat and the hair on the back of your neck rises and your blood starts to boil because you know as soon as someone starts talking you're just going to be angry. You know that going in. Jesus even says there's going to be conflict. There's going to be division. I mean, following Jesus in this world is countercultural in a divide and conquer world, of take what's mine world. And yet to be people that live for the sake of others, that serve in his name in the world, that give of ourselves, to die at his cross with him, that we might have new life. I mean, it's countercultural. People aren't going to like us for it. And to be part of this assembly this week was really something. I anticipated it being like one long sit-at assembly like on steroids, and really I found it to be much different than that. There was business to do, there were elections to be had, but it really was about the people gathered in Christ's name to be sent back to each of our communities and throughout the world, and I thought that was really well done. This election process was something. It really wasn't about candidates jockeying for position, the kind of things we're used to. It really was rooted in prayer, people trying to discern what's the best for our church in the future and what does that look like potentially. And there are 3 images from this week. They're pictures. I'll post them later so you can look at them, that I think really captured what this was all about. So Bishop Mark Hansen has been our presiding bishop for the last 12 years. Most people went into this assembly assuming he would be kind of reaffirmed. And at the early onset, it seemed that way. And over time and discussion and prayer, it ended up a different way. And Elizabeth Eaton, from the bishop from Northeastern Ohio, was elected. But there are these 3 pictures that I think are really telling. So the first one, it was taken the night after the election. And it was from a crossway that kind of went above the assembly hall with windows and down on all of the tables where we had sat a few hours before. And standing with his back to the person taking his picture was Bishop Hansen with his arms behind his back and kind of leaning on the wall and looking down. And it had this kind of look of exhaustion. And yet in the days that followed, he had this graciousness about him, This way of saying, you know, last night I went to bed not knowing what to feel in the morning. And as I woke up this morning, the only thing I could feel was gratitude. Gratitude for the many hands in this church that make so many things happen and the privilege to be a part of it. And it set the tone for the rest of the week. There was an image right at the end, a picture taken after Bishop Eaton was elected, where the two of them, you should know, Bishop Hanson's about my height, and Bishop Eaton's maybe a little bit taller than Joe. So there's a big difference of stature in these two individuals. But they were hugging each other in a kind of a mutual hug. And they both had this like collapse into each other, the way that they were kind of set, and this expression on their faces that you couldn't really tell, was it joy, was it relief, was it sadness, were they about to laugh? You couldn't tell, but there was just such a mutuality there. And one of the things that Bishop Eaton said in one of her responses, they had this kind of question and answer period, and the last question of that is just something else you want us to know? And everybody had kind of their talking points, but she just kind of paused and said, well, I referee basketball. Everybody laughed because she's short. And then she said, the thing you actually need to know is that there were 4 candidates at that point. The 4 of us love each other. Actually, all the bishops in this church love each other. Now, we are a diverse group, men and women and conservative and liberal and all across the theological spectrum, and people have different life experience, different stories. We disagree, we argue, all the things that we human beings are really good at, you know? But we love each other, and we've got each other's back, and we love this church and the people in it, and we know that whatever happens, that Jesus is leading us. I think that was the moment I knew it was it. I think a lot of people did. We live in a world full of division. We've been living in a time of, decline in the church. We fought over everything from, what color the carpet is, to what hymns do we sing, to who's welcome, to what are we doing in the world, to all these types of questions. But she said it best, I think, when she said, all of these things are not the future. The future is Jesus. And that's who we are. The last picture that I want to talk about is the one I took. We had a celebration the last night, a banquet. A celebration of hymnody. So we started with A Mighty Fortress, good Lutheran song to start with, all the way to some contemporary song and a lot of things in between from around the world. And you get 1,000 Lutherans together singing. It was really powerful in the room. And one of the songs we sang was Gracious Spirit, Heed Our Leading. And it was done all on drums, percussion, and kind of like a Caribbean style. And everybody, well, not everybody, but a large number of people got into a conga line and were kind of dancing around the room. And as this happened, I didn't notice it until they came in front of us. Bishop Eaton and Bishop Hanson were back-to-back going in the conga line. I thought that was kind of fun. Division is not who we are. We're going to face division, but as the church, we are one. We are the people that follow Jesus. We have a great cloud of witnesses around us. It's hard to remember that sometimes. I know you've probably experienced this too. For a lot of times, from when I was a kid till now, there's times when you're in your life of faith you just feel alone. Or in the church, you just feel alone. Maybe you feel like you're the only one working on this thing, or you feel like you're the only one with this idea, or you feel pushed out, or whatever. You've felt that, I'm sure you have. Races to know, there's a moment when you're running a race where you kind of turn inward to yourself. The people that are faster than you are much farther ahead, and the sometimes are behind you. And you feel like you're running by yourself. But then there's that moment where you kind of tune back in and you realize you're part of this other thing. You start to see these other faces. You see the cheers at the end. That's what this cloud of witnesses is all about, that we're not forsaken. We're not on our own. We're together across time and space. I had this image in my head while I was there. Our church, the ELCA, is about 4 million people. And that'd be like a big city if you put them all together. It's a small town, about 1,000 people. And you start to see those faces or have known you, people you haven't seen in a while, kind of this little reunion-y kind of piece. People you haven't met before and reach out to, people you just have a conversation with in a line for lunch. And then you to the faces you know, you run with. You come back to the long stories, not just of the church of whole, not just to those people all mentioned in the reading from the stories of old, but the stories of people you know that have encouraged you along the way. We had a lot of guests come and speak. The bishop from Baltimore, Roman Catholic bishop, Madden was his name. Usually when Catholics greet Lutherans, it's to scold them about something. The tone of this was magnificent. He said, you know, you're coming up on your 500th anniversary of the Reformation, and we should be thinking about ways we can walk there together. I mean, isn't that beautiful? We were greeted by a rabbi who came. We can't make this world perfect or ideal, but we can do something and make it better, and maybe we could do that together. We had a who was there. First time a person from a Christian denomination. And I don't know if you remember this, but last year in Milwaukee there was a Sikh temple that was infiltrated by someone who came in a bunch of people and killed them. Very violent thing. And he said, he's the secretary of their organization, and he said, you know, somebody called me right afterwards and said how horrible this was and how we suffer with you in this and that we're praying for you and we want to walk with you, and that was our Bishop Mark Hansen. We have new ways to be this cloud of witnesses, to be people that stand with others in the midst of the divisiveness of this world. And yet what does pull us forward every step of the way is looking to Jesus. The future is not us. The future is Jesus, who runs before us that race. I had the opportunity right before the banquet to meet Bishop Eaton. She was kind of standing there ready to go in. I kind of thought, if I have a moment, this is it. And a friend of mine went with me, and we introduced ourselves, and we said a couple mutual people that we know, and laughed about that. And Eileen and I said, you know, the two of us have been with you from the beginning. Because really, from the moment she spoke, I had that feeling for her. And she kind of laughed and said, well, I hope you're still with me at the end. And I said, of course. But really, that is the wrong answer. Because I'm going to skin my knee, I'm going to misspeak, I'm going to do stupid things. I mean, all of us are going to do that. Jesus is the end. Jesus is the future. Jesus is the one when we've got that skin knee, or we've misspoken, or we've treated someone unfairly, or we should have spoken up and we didn't, or we unintentionally did things that we didn't see the consequences to, that meets us there right in that place. It's right there that we kneel at the foot of the cross. It's right there in that place that he reaches out his stretched hand. You know, the one in it? It's up, although a couple steps ahead of us. Keep running, he says. Keep running.